check and monitor it. But if you know you're about to do something that may require that, then it's a good idea either to get it for free, or if you've done that within the time frame and can't get it for free, to pay to get it again.
To pay to get it again,
right.
It's worthwhile.
Yeah.
Okay, switching up a little bit, but on a somewhat related matter, those credit cards that are supposed to be so helpful, we understand at times they're a dual-edged sword. There are some incredible, very attractive signing bonuses for credit cards.
Right.
Buy now and you'll get a free flight, a free hotel. Seems like it's a great idea. How many do you get daily in the mail? I get plenty of them. What should we do about them?
Well, for the most part, if you don't need them, don't get them.
Okay.
If you have a use for it, and as you're talking about, you get some of these mileage things and other offers to sign up. If you, the credit ratios that go into some of these determinations as to what your credit score is very complex. It sometimes doesn't hurt to have a fair number of credit cards that you use and pay off, so that you're not carrying big balances. So if you're disciplined, that's okay. You don't want to have so much credit available to you that it exceeds what your ability to pay it would be. That will then start hurting your credit rating. So my advice would be, if you're going to open them to keep them open. You really start creating problems on your credit score when you open up a credit card and then close it. If you close a number of credit cards in a small period of time, that's going to hurt you more than it's going to help you.
Sounds legitimate. I understand that people do look for those rewards for flights if they need to do a lot of traveling, but does it make sense that you should be transferring balances just to get the miles? I mean, in a way it seems like maybe it works, but would you suggest to people that they should really be careful about that, even though it looks like it's a great offer initially?
Right. Well, here's the thing. What is the cost to transfer the balance? What is the interest rate that you're transferring to? A lot of times you'll have a couple of different credit cards and you'll get a notice from one of your companies, transfer your balance is 0%, but there's a fee, 3%, 2%, whatever it is. You have to take that and annualize it over the length of the credit term that you're getting to be able to carry a 0%. So if it's 3% to transfer it for 3 months at 0%, that's 12% interest. That may not be better than you're transferring from, or it may be, but you have to really know all the fees and costs as you transfer it. I do know people who have taken advantage of, I've got a balance on a card, I get an offer to transfer it for a very low cost at 0% for 2 years, do that, and then do it again and do it again. If you're not paying those balances down, you're hurting yourself as much, not maybe credit report wise, but economically as anything. So you don't want to live on credit card balances, transfer from balance to balance to balance.
Is there anything really terrible if you just did it once or twice to take advantage of, what do they call that, the float time,
right,
where I would ordinarily have to pay by the 31st of the month, but if I switch it, then I got another 30 days or maybe 60 days?
Yeah, but sometimes you don't really get those float days on transfers. And there's usually a certain percentage or fee up front to transfer it. If you're going from a 20% interest rate to a 0% interest rate, and you know you're not going to be able to pay it off at the 20% interest rate within a reasonable period of time, and you would be at a 0% for a small cost to transfer it, that makes sense. But you have to be disciplined not to then go back out and use that other credit card again and build up your balance on that card.
I guess. I know that people talk about the pump and dump strategies, and many have had those credit cards that accumulated miles on each of 3 or 4 or 5 cards. However, all told, not one of them enabled someone to go from Providence to Boston,
right,
because there were just too few miles. I'm sure that there are many stories in the city about how terrible it is to try to take advantage or collect those rewards, but I guess it's worthwhile to look at them and maybe evaluate them once a year. How often, honestly, how often do you think we should evaluate those credit cards and how they might have changed?
Well,
rates and terms, that is.
Every time you get a notice that they're changing the terms of the card, you should take the time to take a look and see what the changes are and how it's going to affect you. If you carry a balance, you should always be monitored. Every month your card comes in, you should look at the statement and say, has anything changed, and what am I paying for interest, and know all of those terms. If you're not carrying a balance, then, every now and then you can look at it and say, well, if I did use the card, what would the terms be, and do I want to keep the card, do I need the card? And if you're not using it, it doesn't always pay to close the card, because, as I said before, closing cards can hurt you as much as just leaving a zero. It will hurt you more than leaving a zero balance on the card, unless your available credit of all the cards is too high. Okay. The pump and dump, though, situation is, well, as you were talking about the mileage, is the benefit of those miles really worth what it's going to cost me to take one balance, big balance, and put it on that card, and am I ever going to use those miles? So knowing when you can use them, how you can use them, what the rewards really are, you have to study all that before you do that.
It sounds like that's such a piece of work. I think that's probably one of the reasons why when I get that stack of mail, it's just easier to throw it out, hit the trash first.
Right.
I don't know, I've always wondered, and I don't know if you know this, sometimes I imagine maybe Jackie might, she certainly deals with the credit cards and credit issues more than most, but do you need to have a certain FICO score, I wondered, to be lured by some of these companies who want to give you those bonuses and premiums for switching to their card, or is it just someone who has maybe a track record of paying, but not necessarily a high income?
Well, it's interesting because one of the things that will also affect your credit score is the number of inquiries. And you can have people inquiring into your credit history without you even knowing it. And credit card companies are companies that do that as well. So I do think that they take a look, and if you've got a good credit score and a good history, they send you out that information and ask you to join. And like you do, most of those, as far as I'm concerned, end up in the trash. I don't need them. And if you don't need them, why would you expose yourself to that?
And actually, you brought up a good point. I was speaking to a banker very recently, and I hadn't had an occasion to realize this, but apparently, if you are thinking about remortgaging or getting a home equity loan, when you submit or complete an application, it necessarily triggers someone to look at your credit report. And the number of times your credit score gets hit for that kind of query, that also will affect negatively what your credit rating is going to be.
That's exactly right.
So I guess there's a word to the wise about, even though you might have an offer of a lower interest rate, you don't want to do that too often because it will affect your score.
Yeah, part of that would be you wouldn't want to make 4 or 5 applications to refinance your mortgage all at the same time, because now they're all going to hit, and when they all hit with that inquiry, it's going to lower your credit score and perhaps your ability to get that refinance in the first place. Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about those who don't have credit. They always say if you don't have credit, cost of living is very expensive. What do you say to someone who's young and has little or no credit? Well,
that's actually an interesting question, because my oldest daughter graduates from college, and she gets a great job in New York City. By Rhode Island standards, making a ton of money. By New York standards, barely able to live, maybe more than that. But in any event, she has no credit score because she's never had credit before. And so she now tries to go and get a credit card, and they say, no, can't have one. And so what had to happen is she had to go and develop a relationship with someone in a bank and get a very small credit card. And then what she was advised to do, and what she did, was she would use it each month. It was very small. It was like $500. Charged the
Can't get into trouble that way.
No, you can't. But she charged the full $400 or $500 a month, paid it off every month in full, and did that for a number of months. Went back, they increased the line a little bit, and kept doing that until she developed the credit. She also, even though she's in New York, bought a car. And what she wanted to do, the reason she did that after she started developing her credit score, among other reasons that she wanted to be able to get back and forth when she wanted to get back and forth, was so she could get another loan, a small loan on the car. She could have paid for it outright, but she wanted to get a loan on the car so she could develop more of a credit rating by showing that she can pay that monthly and pay it off. In fact, she paid it off early. So you have to go out in small steps and get credit and use the credit and show that you're responsible with the credit by paying it off every month.
Certainly sounds like she had the right approach and managed it well.
Right.
I understand, too, that if not at a bank, such as your daughter went first, that some of these furniture stores will be more likely to work with a consumer or maybe a young couple who they understand have low wages, but want to build up credit. So they certainly have an occasion to work with them with a little more flexibility at times, I guess, and that may work.
And it's usually a collateralized loan, meaning
Explain.
that you borrow money for something, a purchase, in this case of furniture or a car. When there's a collateral involved, the bank is a little more comfortable lending the money because if you don't pay, they can take back what you bought.
The repossession.
The repossession. So they're a little bit more liberal in what they'll do because their loan's a little bit more protected. So a lot of times early on, like my daughter did with the car loan, it's a good idea to go out and get that type of loan which you're more likely to get, and then pay it timely and pay it off.
Good. And now for a little bit of good news, which we deserve. Apparently there is now a good association of nonprofits around the country who are launching innovative programs to help poor people, low-wage earners, build their credit scores. As we said earlier, many of them have low or no credit, and now they have an opportunity to have credit built for them. The nonprofit will take the information of their reported apartment checks and maybe over 3 or 4 or 5 months running, be able to take that person who had little or no credit and perhaps even bring up that credit score to 600, 700 in 6 months. In a way, when you think about it, no utility company, even if you are paying for it, why would they ever have a reason to report for you good credit? It's time consuming, it's a pain for them, where would they do it? It sounds like that's a very good approach.
It's a great idea because, as you said, the only time something's going to get reported in a situation like that is if you don't pay. So now you have the opportunity to have this group get your credit together and report the good things you're doing, paying your utility bills on time, paying your rent on time, and helping you to show that you are a responsible person worthy of a better credit score. That's a great idea.
It's interesting because as I was reading about this, there's a lot of good information that indicates those low-wage earners, though low-wage earners, they certainly have a very predictable and good way of managing their finances, and they do pay their rent on time, they pay their car payment on time, they pay their little utilities on time, but collectively that doesn't get reported. And as you said, it's only the bad news that gets reported. Well, this is a good way to stem the tide and reverse it a bit.
You know, go back many years. I remember my grandparents' generation, they had envelopes, you know. Money goes in each week for the electric bill, money goes in for the food, and they were very good managers of money. And my grandfather used to say, it doesn't matter how much money you make, it's how much money you save. Which really means how much money you spend within your means.
Manage it well.
Right.
I know we've spoken before about these payday loan companies. Even if someone is a low-wage earner and needs money, they can go to those places and quite easily get the money, but at some exorbitant, usurious rates. And, of course, even if they paid those back on time, there would be no vested interest whatsoever for that payday loan company to take that information and report it because they want to keep
your credit rating low.
That's right. It's, so would you say to someone that they really should go to payday loan companies as the court of last resort?
Yeah, absolutely, the court of last resort. You're much better off getting a conventional loan and getting credit on your credit report for the credit you take.
It's good news. There is good news. I think it's called Credit Builders Alliance, and it is supposed to be free. Check it out. Stay informed. There will be plenty of information available on credit ratings and credit scores in the coming months. Thank you for tuning in and watching Legal Matters. Our discussion of legal matters will continue. And I'm not sure where we're going to be going next week, but I hope that Jackie is with us, and we'll see if there are more things to discuss with it. Thank you.